All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of With Intolerance. This is episode 27, and it's just Dylan and I. And today we're going to talk about a lot of things, actually. We have a good question list built up here on Google Sheets, and we're ready to kind of knock through these things. But first of all, this is the last podcast for the end of the year. And like Dylan mentioned to me off air, the last podcast of the decade, which is kind of crazy. So I guess let's do this in reverse, Dylan. Let's go back down to the questions and let's kind of look back on like the podcast in general. So we've been doing this for almost 30 episodes. That's 6 months or so.
Yeah. I mean, we hit exactly half a year on our last podcast with Andrew, and it's been a lot of fun. I'm going back through our Instagram right now. Like, our first episode was just us kind of, sharing our stories about how we became machinists and things like that. And like, we didn't really even know each other all that well back then. And yeah, it's just kind of cool to go back through and see the posts. And like, you were out at Bricks by the Bay, I think our second or third episode, talking 5-axis. I hadn't even thought about getting a new machine then. I feel like we've had a lot of growth in 6 months, and it's been a lot of fun to kind of bring our audience along with us.
Yeah, and it's kind of cool to document it along the way. I mean, like I said, I went back and listened to like the first couple episodes, and it was just really weird to hear us talk about like the struggles that we were having at the time. And like now it's like I feel like I'm so far ahead of that.
Yeah, I really need to go back and listen to the first and second or something like that. I think
Yeah.
it'll be a lot of
So
fun.
yeah, so I mean, I'm really excited for next year. Like I said, my goal is to get this as big as we can by IMTS. I think it'd be really cool to do some sort of meetup there. And then before IMTS, it'd be really cool to get like t-shirts out so we could maybe see people wearing Within Tolerance t-shirts. I think that would be really cool.
Yeah, well, I mean, the hoodies we got was definitely like a kind of a glimpse into the future. It's really cool to be able to wear something with our logo on
Yeah, it's kind of crazy because I even remember when we were like trying to come up with the logo and we were both sending each other like chicken sketches of just like,
it.
oh, what should we do? And then it like we had it made by who was it? Like someone on Upwork, right?
Yeah, either Upwork or I think I did it through Fiverr. Like, I did a rough sketch and then I
Oh,
put
that's
it through
right.
Fiverr and it all came together. So
Yeah, but like I can't wait to get that on t-shirts and like stickers and start seeing people post about that. I think that'd be really cool.
yeah, definitely. Well, like we've said, everybody listening, we're gonna do it at 1,000 followers on Instagram. We're at 894 right now, so we're real close. Once we get there, we'll definitely get T-shirts, stickers, all that stuff, and start doing giveaways.
894, really?
Yep.
Jeez. Yeah, that's crazy to me. Some of the people that are following us now, it's really cool to see like some kind of big name people start following us, and it makes me want to have a lot more guests on. But I like this system, and I'm curious to see for all the listeners out there if you guys like the system, if we kind of alternate between Dylan and I and then like a guest. That way it gives us kind of like, for me and Dylan, it gives us kind of like a week break to not talk about each other. Um, and we can kind of build up content to talk about in the next episode. I think it's a good system as of now, at least.
I think it's good for us, definitely. I know I can't remember who it was that messaged us on our Instagram, but they were like, "You need to talk more about your shop." Like, I don't like the week between episodes of you guys talking about your shop, and I was like, "Oh, that's kind of cool." Like,
Really?
you never know, like, if people are listening just for the every other week guest, or if they're actually listening for what we're talking about. So that was a good. It felt good getting that kind of message.
Yeah, seriously. So I guess let's see. Is there any goals that we have for the podcast this coming year? I guess we kind of touched on those as far as like getting T-shirts. Then there's a couple people in my head that I'd like to get on as guests, and then a couple that I want to come back on. So other than that, I mean, can you think of anything?
I think I'd like to do some more like community events, like giveaways or I don't know, like contests or something like that. Like I think Machinist Therapy Hotline does a really good job of uh, engagement with their audience and like with the instant machinist community, and I'd like to kind of follow suit and do things more to benefit the whole community.
Yeah, that's true.
So we'll have to talk amongst ourselves and kind of figure out what we want to do that's different, but definitely look out for that stuff. And in 2020 we'll definitely come up with something.
Yeah. So I guess going full circle here, what's new with you? Me and Dylan and I haven't talked for probably 2 weeks because we've had the last two episodes were pre-recorded, so we've kind of just been texting, and it's kind of weird to hear your voice again.
Yeah. Been it has been weird. Like we've talked so consistently every week that I haven't really had anybody. I mean, I've talked to like Brad every time we work together over the weekend and stuff, but like it's nice to have another machinist to just vent to or share successes or failures with. So yeah, we've been steadily busy. Been working a whole bunch in the shop, getting parts out. I'm trying to think of when. So the last like rush order I had to get out was right before Christmas. I had to ship it so that it was delivered the 23rd. So that was after we had spoken last. So I
Okay.
was rushing to get it done on the 21st, which is the last day to ship it overnight to get there on the 23rd. And the cutoff time for our overnight shipping is 4 o'clock. And I showed up. I was like running super late. I showed up at FedEx at like 4:20, 4:22, and I was like, oh, this is the worst. Like, of
Oh
course, the
no.
last one before the holidays, and I'm gonna like be late. Um, really, I don't think they would have noticed because they were gone the 24th through like the 3rd, but I still felt really bad about it. But I get there and I see the FedEx guy like loading up a truck, and I go to the thing and ask her for the box and pack it all up, and I'm like, hey, is there any way I can get it on that truck? She's like, well, no. Like if you want an origin scan, I can't. But if you just want to like give it to him as like a drop off, that's totally fine. I was like, yeah, of course I want to do that. What are you talking about? Like I'd much rather get there on time than have some receipt. Like I don't care. And so she gave it to him, and everything worked out. It got there on time and all that. So that was a big
Whew.
relief. Yeah. And I was like, oh man, this is a great opportunity. She's like, yeah, well, if he had been on time and like gave him a stink eye, you wouldn't have had this opportunity. I was like, well, whatever. So
Jeez.
that worked out really, really well. I had heard that they were sometimes late, and I kind of assumed, I didn't assume, but I was very hopeful that because of the holiday they would be running late, and it all worked out. Uh,
That's really lucky on your part.
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, we knew it was going to be tight anyway. We were waiting on tools up until the last minute for those parts, and I had gotten some of it done earlier in the week that I didn't need those tools for, and then yeah, I mean, I knew it was going to come down to the wire, and really, I thought I was going to be even later than that. Like, I didn't think I was going to be done till 6 or something that night, but it all worked out. So that was really, really nice, and we've just been pretty steadily busy. Both working on our work and also like getting all those ornaments out. We're only a few from being fully done, which is nice. They take a lot longer than last year's, a lot longer because both sides are 3D machined.
Yeah, there's a lot of surfacing on that part.
Yeah, I think they're 10 minutes aside about,
Okay.
and that's pushing it. Maybe not as hard as I possibly can, but like as hard as I really want to for something that we're not making money on. Um, so we're almost done with those. We'll probably ship those out this weekend, I think, and get them to everybody, all of our customers and stuff. And yeah, it's been great though. The brothers just like absolutely killing it. I mean, I think I waxed poetically enough about it on the last episode, but like just today, even I was running op ones on these parts that I have to ship this weekend, and like first part off was within a few tenths of nominal on every single dimension.
Really?
Yeah, and like usually there's always something I have to comp in the first part. Like that was my tester part, and it was pretty much perfect. I like backed off a chamfer tool a little bit to make the chamfer a little smaller, but it was still a good part, and yeah, it was fantastic.
That's awesome. So, I guess, do you want to jump into the questions that I have, or is there anything else that you wanted to talk about?
No. Well, I mean, I got your ornament that you sent out. That thing was pretty awesome. How was that whole experience for you?
Honestly, so you had done your ornaments, and I was like, okay, I know I want to do an ornament because, um, as far as like giving them out to customers, and I didn't have a whole lot of stock on hand. I had one bar, and so I was like, I had an idea of originally doing like a present and like just engraving an outline of a present, but I'm like, I don't like that idea. I want to do something cooler. And so then I was like, a candy cane would be cool, but then I'm like, that might be kind of hard to fixture and whatnot, because if you picture a candy cane, you picture that one part kind of being like a lever, right? Um, and so I was like, what do I want to do? Do I want to do something simple, or should I just go for it? And I just went for it. And I mean, you got one. I think they turned out pretty nice, honestly.
Yeah, I think it looks great. And I was, when you showed me the idea at first, I was worried about the same thing, like that, the crumple zone, I guess you could call it, in the middle of the candy cane arch.
Yeah.
But it seems like your
So
soft jaws worked, and you're able to hold on to them pretty well. Everything looks great on them.
honestly, the op one was harder than the op two because for whatever reason, I think it was because the candy cane widthwise and Y wasn't as wide as it could have been, and so I had a thin layer of stock, um, and then the parts in the middle, and there's just a lot of distance there, and I think it was bowing and flexing because of all the clamping pressure I put on it with the talons,
Mm-hmm.
and I was having some problems with the engraving on. There's a BrickTactical logo, then I put 2019, and sometimes the 2019 was really faint, and I think it was just because it was Boeing.
Oh, yeah, that's one thing I forgot on my ornaments this year was the year, and I feel kind of bad about. Well, I don't feel bad about that, but like it was a missed opportunity for sure. But it's funny you were talking about clamping for. So we bought stock for the first round of these ornaments based on I was trying to fit the ornament in the smallest bit of stock that I possibly could to save money on it. And I ended up, it was a good learning experience, and thankfully it was cheap, but I ended up having to reorder all of the stock in a thicker material because the star, if you think of a star inside of a square, between all of the legs would get so thin. Like I was only leaving 100. Initially, I was using 3/8 stock, and I was only leaving like 100 thou on the bottom, and it would get so thin that when it tried to pocket the center and then do all the 3D machining, it was just screaming. Like it sounded so horrible because
Really?
it's like 3.5 inch stock square, so just spanning all of that distance, it really just made a mess. And like I just felt like such an idiot because my first instinct was like, oh, I'll get 1/2 inch stock and it'll work fine. And then I was like, no, I can save some money and get 3/8 stock. And I ended up having to reorder everything. And like, granted, I probably could have come up with another option to use the 3/8 stock, like made some other kind of jaws or something. I thought about buying talon grips and making like a fixture to support them, but the buying a full new round of stock was cheaper than buying talon grips and waiting for them, or not talon grips,
Yeah.
pit bull clamps. That's what I meant.
Okay, yeah.
So I ended up just doing that, and it all ended up working out. Like the big time crunches, we wanted to get at least a handful of them done to get to our families because they're local and it's easy to give them to them. And so we got
How
all
many
that.
of those did you end up getting made? Or I mean, you said you're still working on them.
Yeah, I think I've got 6 more to go through the second op. So we made total 40 of them. 40 of them, I think. Either 40 or 42, something like that. Or 45. 45, that's what it was. Because I bought 35 pieces of stock and then I bought another 10 when I realized that we wanted a little more.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how many customers is that you're going to send to versus family?
I think Brad and I each got like 4 or 5. I might have gotten, I think I made myself an extra because I've got a few friends that I send them to. But that's still probably maybe 10 or 10 or 12 customers, and we send more than one to a few of them because there's like
Okay, yeah.
more than one person that we talk with, and like a few of them aren't customers, they're like vendors or something that we want to keep, that we appreciate all the stuff they do all year and just wanted to give back. Like we gave one to the saleswoman at IMS that we see all the time and that like answers all of our emails, and people like that.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, she was super appreciative, and like I think I've talked about it on the podcast before. I've had like a real struggle in the past with IMS. Like a bunch of their salespeople just would completely ignore us. I as I've talked about a lot, a lot of our customers require really quick turnaround on parts, and so like if I can't get quotes the same day and get the ball rolling on material, it just is super annoying and really makes my job that much harder. And since she started at IMS, she pretty much gets back to me within 20 minutes every time, 20, 30 minutes. She's fantastic. So
That's awesome.
yeah, she's been a really big help, which is great.
Yeah, I think I didn't, like I said, I didn't have much stock, and then I screwed up a couple, so I just kept those for myself and gave them to, I mean, oh yeah, this is one of the talking points that, so I put down ornaments on our talking points, and one of the things that I almost texted you, I almost called you actually, because I was like, I'm struggling with this part bowing and then engravings being annoying, and then I had a problem in op 2 when I go to flip it, the 3D machining wasn't blending well, like the Y offset was off just enough where there was a sharp edge where it goes from straight walls up to that radius,
Uh huh.
if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, it was, I mean, we're talking maybe half a thou or maybe a thou, and I have to kept messing with it, but then I figured it out. And I was just like, I had to take a step back and literally like say out loud, Payton, it's just an ornament.
Yeah.
Like I had to like catch myself, and I'm like, I'm already spending like a whole day on this. Like I don't need to like nitpick. Like this isn't a part that's going on a helicopter.
Right, right, right. Well, and yeah, like you said, you can't stress about it. Like that's half the fun of making stuff like ornaments is that there are zero tolerances. It is
Exactly.
purely up to the eye. Like, does it look good? Does it feel good? If you can say yes to both of those, ship it. It's like if you would be happy receiving it as a gift in the mail, that's all that matters. So
Yeah, and it's just it comes down to like the level of pickiness that I have, and which is it's great on one hand, but it can be really annoying at others because it's like if I know it passes my standards, I'm more than confident it'll pass anyone's standards.
right,
Um,
right. No,
and
I went through the
so
same struggle because like there was little places on the 3D on the star that I was like, oh, that could be better. Oh, that blend could look nicer. Things like that. That I'm like, oh well, and like I went through a few tester parts and got to where I was really happy with it. But like there's always something I can improve. So I totally understand what you're saying.
yeah, so I don't know. It was definitely worth. I spent way too much time on them to be honest, but it was definitely worth it. I think I did them on Christmas Eve. Um, but I mean, I got like 12 of them that were good, and then 3 that were like, quote, bad. So I'll give the 3 to family members, and then I shipped to like 5 or 6 customers, a couple with just one each, a couple, like one had 3 each or something like that. But basically, all my customers, and then a couple guys that have just helped me over the years, yourself included. But I mean, yeah, I'm happy I did it for sure.
Yeah, yeah, it's fun. It's also turned out the last 2 years, the only 2 years we've done it, that we've gotten a new machine just before having to do them, and so it's always been like a good test of the new machine. Like this was much more 3D machining than we had done on it yet, and like I got to play around with the high speed codes and the accuracy settings and all that stuff, and really only learned how much I don't know about that on my machine. But I've reached out to a couple people and gotten some really good documentation on the newer high speed codes on the C0 control. So I'm really looking forward to playing around with those in the new year.
So wait, did you make your last year's ornaments on your older brother?
Yeah, those were
Like right when you got it?
those were literally the first chips on that brother.
Really?
Yep. Yeah, I think we had faced like one thing just to be like, yep, we can put a toolpath in it, and then the first real chips, like a full program, were the ornaments.
Okay.
Because at that
So
point, we didn't even
yeah,
have
I
a way
mean,
to load programs. Like I was bringing in my laptop because I had a USB to RS-232 adapter that I could use on there, and I was loading programs only through my laptop on that machine until we got the CalMotion box.
oh jeez.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyways, ornaments definitely cool. I'm already like thinking about next year's, which is probably not what I should be dedicating brain power to right now, but
Yeah, but if you get your ideas sorted now, then it's like way less stress. Like I wish I had gotten a head start on these this year, but life kind of throws stuff at you and you just got to react. Like
Oh yeah,
there was
I
no
know
way
that
that I
feeling.
could sit there and like try to cam up an ornament for a machine that I didn't have yet, and like there was time I better spent on all of that stuff. So it all worked out though.
That's good. Okay, next, I wanted to bring up Softjaws are amazing. And this sounds so dumb, but like I had like an epiphany moment. So go back in time in school, we were always taught to, when you make Softjaws, so picture the back jaw, right?
Hmm.
The back left corner was your G54 or whatever, right? And I was always taught, okay, that back corner, the Z is your top of your jaws, and then X and Y, and then you machine like a tooling hole. You cut a Z surface, and then you make a really accurate like quarter-inch hole, and then you reset your offset to that location and that machine surface. Then you cut your jaws.
What?
So does that make sense though?
I mean, I understand what you're saying. Does it make sense? No, but
Okay, but I think the thought is to, and this is, I honestly don't know, and so I'm just gonna keep talking here. But I think the thought my instructor was trying to get across is if you pull the jaws out and put them back in, you can relocate.
yeah, it sounds like a more production ready soft jaw way of making soft jaws. Yeah, I understand that for sure.
Yeah. So, okay. I don't know why, but that's why I was always so lazy about making soft jaws, is because it was like, I gotta program and do all this dumb, which I could have saved templates, I guess, looking back on it. But like, I got to do all this dumb work where I just want to like cut the jaws and cut apart. And I finally was like, you know what, screw it. I'm just gonna leave my G54 as that back corner. I know it's not like the best. I mean, I really should remachine something because you put the jaw in and you don't know how it's sitting. I mean, you could check it, but I was like, you know what, screw it. I'm gonna do that. Cut the pockets, and I'm like, this all just makes sense though, because if you're locating off the back left, and let's say you have everything modeled, like it's just gonna work, like, and it does. Like, I don't know why. I understand why I was taught that, but like I've been doing this for the past couple, I mean, like a month now, and it's just totally, it's just easy.
Well, it's so funny that you say that because that's like totally different than how I cut soft jaws.
How do you do it?
Mine's dead center in the soft jaw, center in X, center in Y, which is usually the center of like whatever parallel or whatever I'm using to space it, and then on top of the jaw for Z.
Okay.
And so my Y shifts depending on how wide I have to open the jaws, but besides that, my X and my Z stay the same every time.
And then how do you, I guess a question for you is, how do you space your jaws? Do you, because I try to keep it standard to like an inch or two, and I just use like 1, 2, 3 blocks.
Oh, I use
Um,
parallels, so like the
okay.
smallest increment. Well, actually, so like the parts I'm doing right now at the shop are super tiny. Like I think they're like an eighth inch thick or like
Oh,
deep
geez.
in Y. And so if I used one parallel, that would be the entire part. So
Yeah.
like for those, I actually use my business cards, which I found out are almost exactly 20 thou.
That's cool.
So I just like rip it in half and then use one on each side of the jaws. But
Okay.
for the most part, I use increments of an eighth inch because all of my parallels are an eighth inch thick. And so I know like I try to get the absolute most jaw coverage on the part that I possibly can.
Yeah.
So I
And then
usually,
I guess, oh, I'm sorry to cut you
well, no, I
off.
was gonna say like so usually like two and an eighth is like where I start, and then I go up from there. And like every time I add a parallel, I lose an eighth of an inch of jaw coverage under the part, which I try to eliminate as much as possible.
Are you ever worried? This is another thing they taught us in school, is like, if you're going to do that, make sure you're using like aluminum like stock and check it, so you just have no you can clamp all the way up on the stock and machine the spacer. That way your jaws aren't flexed, because you obviously don't want to run into your hard parallels.
Yeah, I mean I use the tallest parallels I can, but I'm never, as of yet, I haven't encountered a problem with jaw flexing all that much. Like I'm
Okay.
also not. all of the jaw, well, not all of the jaws, for the most part, I buy the flippable jaw stock for the Carb Smarts, which fits
Yep,
completely inside the carrier, and so there's not a whole lot of aluminum that isn't supported the entire way through. Like
that's
I
true.
definitely grip up a lot higher, and I'll use 1, 2, 3 blocks or something like that if I've got the taller, what, inch and a half or 2 inch tall Carb Smart jaw stock.
Okay, so I guess I might even be able to get away with start using parallels as long as you check your depths and all that.
Yeah, yeah. Before I run any Softjaw code, I always, look on the header on the Fusion post and see what my furthest or my deepest Z is, and then I'll go and just caliper whip real quick what my parallels are off the top.
Okay, interesting.
And then because I'm running the jaws so close together, very often if I'm worried about like how close I am to the carriers, I will run my finish pass on the soft jaws 5 thou deep as the first tool path with a forced tool change in between them. So I can just run that and watch it without coolant and make sure that I'm not going to hit the jaws ever.
Oh, interesting.
Or the jaw carriers, I mean.
Okay.
Because like I've definitely gotten really close before, just because I want as much support under the part as I possibly can.
Okay. Yeah, I just found it interesting because this is actually a while ago when I ran those parts for my old job. I just did the soft jaws like that, and then for the candy canes, I did that, and like I was just like, this is easy. And then, um, yeah, I don't know, it just felt like, oh, this is how machining should be. Like it should be easier.
Yeah. Oh, it's super easy, and especially with the carb smarts that you have, like that's why we started buying orange vices was because it was so quick to swap to soft jaws.
Yeah,
So yeah, we I mean, I don't know, 80% of our parts we use soft jaws. Like even if they
yep.
have a square side, if I'm worried about the thickness at all and I want to really tightly control that, I'll use soft jaws. Even if I just machine like a step in them sometimes, just so that I have exactly the kind of support that I want versus using parallels.
Yeah, I found I've been doing that a lot recently, especially on parts that I have to like drill through and I couldn't use parallels.
Yeah, yeah, I've definitely had parts where I'm worried if the parallel walks underneath it that I'm gonna smash it with a drill or a tap or something. So yeah, I'm right there with you.
Yeah, so anyways, soft jaws are awesome and I love them. And then second of all, you got me into using wear and I've gotten really comfortable using that.
Good, good. I mean,
Um,
it's funny. It was really funny seeing all of the different opinions that rolled in when we did our poll and
yeah,
seeing what different people said. But I personally I find it as the easiest to kind of wrap my head around. And I just find it really easy to be like, well, I can feel that I need a thou bigger if I'm, especially if I'm using pins or something, and I'm like, well, I'm 2 thou small, I'll comp it out a thou. Like
yeah.
it's easy. So I don't know, it works for me. It seems like it's working for you, so that's great.
Yeah, one thing though I got to be conscious of is if you have like I've been doing a lot of parts where like it's a cylinder, like picture like a bottle and a cap, but no threads. Like that fit needs to be nice.
Hmm.
Um, and so I just got to remember, okay, if I comp it minus a thou, it's really two thou because it's taking it off both sides. Like I just got to be aware of that.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
Um,
And actually, it's funny. So in the Brother, we have wear wear values also on the height, which we didn't in any of our other machines.
really?
Well, we do in the old Brother too, but like the Kitamura doesn't have it. A lot of Fanuc controls, a lot of older Fanuc controls don't have it, I should say.
Okay.
It came back to bite me in the ass when we were doing the ornaments because
Uh oh.
I had dropped or the tool pocket that I was using as my ball mill for the backside. What I'm saying is the backside of my ornaments, which is like the radial toolpath.
Yep.
It kept wiping out the center and wiping out like the flat that was supposed to be on the top of the very top of the ornament. And I was like, man, like I think the machine's overrunning because I'm not using a high speed code, blah blah blah. Like So then I change it and like add the high speed code in, and it's still doing it. I'm like, what is going on? And like I reset the tool on the tool setter, and I'm like, it's still happening. And then I go and look, and I had forgotten like a 5 thou offset that I had put
Oh,
in that
jeez.
tool from the because I was using like a before I loaded that ball mill, I was using a thread mill to deburr these extrusions that we were cutting in there, and they were varying quite a bit, so I had to keep comping them down, and I just completely forgot to wipe that out. And like, I felt like such an idiot. Like Brad even turned to me, he's like, "You are so dumb." I was like,
It's
"Yeah."
like, Brad, be quiet. Let me do my thing.
No, I totally deserved it. I was like, that is like, because he saw me pulling my hair out. I was like, man, I don't get it either. Like, what's going on? And then finally, I went to the offset page and saw it. I was just like, oh, I'm so dumb.
You ever? It is probably one of those moments, but I get these every now and then. Is you'll like be hunting for that number, and then it just appears, and you're like, it's right there.
Oh
Like
yeah,
it's right there.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. It happens all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, uh, that's one thing that I love about machining is that like I don't know, 99% of the time there is an answer. Like you might it
Yeah.
might not be obvious to you, you might not be aware of it, but there is an answer. Like I had one at work actually this last week. So we were machining these parts, and I was responsible for the first op on them. And the last thing I do in that op is I machine 3 locating holes for the next operation.
Okay.
And we had already run 5 of these parts through and had gotten them through the last operation. Everything was fine. My operation ran perfectly the first time. Well, this time I go load up my part. Everything looks like it cuts fine. I go to drop my pin gauges in to check the diameter of my locating holes, and they were 22 thou oversized.
Whoa.
I check all my offsets. Everything's fine there. Check the tool. Tool looks fine. And then I spin it up, and I notice that it looks like it has like a ton of run out. And so I pull the tool out, and there's a giant chip on the tool holder.
Oh,
And I'm like,
jeez.
oh, maybe it's from the tool change. And so like I cleaned the whole tool change arm. I cleaned up inside the tool changer. I was like, that has got to be it. I go and I run another part, totally fine. I'm like, okay, I got it. I run another part, totally fine. I run a fourth part, and the same thing happens. It doesn't go 22 thou oversized this time, but it went like 4 thou oversized. And these were plus or minus a half thou holes, or they're supposed to be.
Okay.
And I'm like, what is going on? And so I look inside the tool changer or the spindle again, and there's a small chip on the taper again. I'm like, where are these coming from? And then I notice, oh, there's a chip on top of the pull stud too. And I was using
Oh.
through spindle coolant in this machine. And I go to the side of the machine, and when they had first dropped off, this is the Doosan that I'm a super big fan of.
This story is just, building on that.
Well, it was not the Doosan's fault. So the way
Okay.
that the Doosan through spindle coolant works is that there is a cyclone filter on the through spindle, and so it needs to be cracked on the bottom and like constantly be purging a little bit of coolant for the cyclone filter to work. And somebody, we still have no idea who it was probably whoever was changing out the coolant last, one of our maintenance guys, closed that line thinking like, oh, why is there a valve open? And sure enough,
Oh.
the second I open it back up to where it's supposed to be, and there's like a little line on the gauge that shows where the pressure is supposed to drop. The second I opened that back up and I did a few tool changes, everything was completely fine. And for the rest of the parts, it was totally fine. No more chips in the spindle. And I was like, oh, that's so frustrating.
Yeah, that's where you need to make a little permanent sticky note and put on that, keep open.
Yeah, well, I mean, there is a one of those line keepers on the gauge where it's supposed to sit, and like so, the first thing I did was go, call over our maintenance lead. I was like, hey, I'm not saying this was you. I'm not saying it was one of your guys. I don't know who it was, but you need to make sure that this stays open. Like, don't close this valve. And so,
Yeah.
I've told as many people as I can now, and I think that should solve the problem. But it was very interesting and like a definitely one of those things where it's like, well, there is an answer. I'm gonna find it. I just don't know what it is yet.
Yeah, and that's just case in point that it might not be your tooling, it might not be your programming, it might not be anything like that. I mean, it could just be the dumbest little thing.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And thankfully, yeah, like I had a few little inklings of like what could be causing it. Because A, I knew I was the only one to have used 3-spindle on that machine so far. B, when I found that chip on top of the pull stud, I was like, well, I very highly doubt that that is from the tool changer. Like there is no reason that the tool changer would be loading up chips on top of the pull stud. So
Yeah.
that was kind of the big key. I was like, I'm gonna go check that filter. And the second I walked around, I was like, yep, that's it.
Yep. Yep.
But anyway.
Yeah. So I guess another question. Speaking of tool holders, Dylan, you can talk about this, but Dylan mentioned to me that he bought a bunch of new tooling for his new brother, and you brought up SK. Is it 10 holders?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
we bought a little bit of each SK10 and SK16.
okay, so I'm assuming is that just referring? Okay, let me back up. I've seen these holders before. What are they? Because like I've just I've seen them, but like what is it? Like it's just another collet style, or
Yeah. So if you think of an ER collet, it has a, I can't remember the degrees. I think it's 12 or 16 degrees or something like that on the bottom, and then there is also a taper on the top. So it's a
yep,
dual taper collet that the nut and the tool holder themselves both have tapers that they integrate to and cause it to contract.
yep,
SK has a smaller taper. I believe it's 8 degrees. And
okay,
so, and it's only on one side. So you technically get less run out and are supposed to get higher gripping force because of that.
okay.
Um, there has been enough doubt in my mind that SK holders do not have more holding power. Well, I don't know. I've had a tool pull out of an SK, I guess is the thing.
Okay.
But I also keep all of our roughers in SKs now, and I just tighten the crap out of them. So, um, really, I think they have quite a bit of torque. I think they have quite a bit of holding power, and they have less run out, which is really the big reason that we have switched a lot of our tools to them, especially like
So
our
as
finish
far as
racing.
like if you took like a 16th inch end mill, put it in an ER16 collet holder versus a SK whatever holder, that run out, how much difference would that be?
I think I'm not 100%. I'm trying to go through real quick Mari Tools website because they have a really good explanation of it somewhere. I'm just
Because I've
struggling to find it.
seen those holders all over the place, but I've just been too shy to ask like what the heck are these things?
Yeah, so because of their taper, you do get less run out. I think it's like half. Okay, so an ER is 16. I was right there. But the collets have more range than an SK. SK has more on size. So they're like half the range of an ER.
Okay.
And they have much less. The taper pocket is just as concentric as an ER, but because of the way that the collet collapses, you get more or less run out. Sorry. And I
Does
don't
it
know.
say any numbers as far as run out difference?
No, I think I've seen it from Lindex that they're about half. Like they're a few tenths out to a certain amount of diameters past the collet face.
So it's really the collet.
Yeah, but it's not like you can put an SK collet in an ER holder
Exactly, yeah.
because the SK collet actually like pops into the cap on or the nut on the SK holder.
Okay, so it's really the collet that's determining the tool holder type.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And because it's a smaller angle, you're for the same amount of torque, you get more holding power, or you're supposed to get more holding power.
And then do you just use like a spanner wrench?
Yeah, so like on the Mari Tool ones, the same open box wrench that does the ER16 nuts also does the SK10s, and then I think their open like claw shaped one for ER25 also does their SK16s.
Okay.
So it's like the same kind of wrenches that you would use on an ER collet system.
Okay. I'm just trying to think if that might be feasible for any mold tools or something.
It might be worth your while to try it. I know, like, we've seen better life and better run out on smaller tools like 16ths. So like right now we run all of my standard tools, I think, are in SKs. So like my rougher and finisher 3/8, my quarter inch, my 16th, my 3/16, and my 1/8 inch are all in SK holders. And then
Okay.
all of my other holders are ERs just because the range is bigger, and that way I can fit a wider range of drills, taps, odd end mills, whatever I need to fit in there.
Okay.
So it's a lot cheaper to buy a set of ER collets that will fit more tools than it is to buy an SK set.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And
Interesting.
if any of our listeners has anything that they need to correct, I'm more than happy to be wrong.
Yeah.
Those are just my understandings of you know the ER versus SK game.
Yeah, I mean it makes sense. I've just like I said, I've always been interested into seeing and hearing what those are about.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think for how many small tools you use, I would certainly give it a try.
Yeah.
Um, it yeah, I really like them,
Okay.
but they are definitely more specific.
They're not that terribly more expensive, I've noticed though.
No. I mean, especially not from Mari Tool, but from anybody,
Yeah.
they're more or less. I mean, there's nothing special about them, I guess is the best way to put it. Like they are, they're just a tapered collet chuck, just like an ER. It's just different.
Yeah.
So yeah, they shouldn't be more expensive. They're not like one of those really fancy collet chucks or milling chucks that are out there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you said you got a shrink fit holder?
Yeah. I got a 3/8 shrink fit for a Diamondback that I'm gonna put in there.
Okay. Yeah,
Which
I'm curious to see how you like that because I've been seeing a lot of people talk about shrink fit lately, and I don't know, it'd be cool to maybe get like a 1/2 inch one or something.
I've got a 1/2 inch one in the kitty that we've had for 2 years now, a year and a
Okay.
half, and I have the exact same tool that we put in it 2 years ago still in there.
Oh, geez.
It's probably done, I don't know, 300-400 pounds of aluminum. Like the thing's been a monster. So
And this is the Diamondbacks?
yeah, yeah. So the one that I have currently was a trial holder from Technics. And their thing
Okay.
was that they would give us a free holder to try out, and all we had to do was send them a tool to put in it. And because we didn't have a shrink fit machine, and so we sent them a brand new Diamondback, 1/2 inch, 1 1/4 length of cut, and yeah, that thing just hauls ass and cuts chips and does great. It's starting to get dull now. Like it's starting to chatter a little bit where it hasn't before, and you can kind of hear it. But I mean, I'm okay with the return on investment for that, which is the cost of the tool, which was nothing. So, or compared to the holder,
Yeah. How much
nothing.
are those tools?
The Diamondbacks.
Yeah.
I would have to look. They're not that much more than like a standard end mill. Like
Okay. I mean,
Destiny
I
in
think,
general is kind of more expensive than like helical, but I mean, I absolutely love their tools
okay.
for aluminum. At least they're my favorite aluminum end mills.
Okay. Yeah. Because I found I just bought a couple more 1/2 inch tools and I really like the YG stuff. I've had good luck with them.
Yeah, oh yeah, they're great. So like a 1/2 inch Diamondback coated with a 1 1/4 inch length of cut is $93.
Oh, wow. So that is pretty pricey.
Yeah, but it's made, I don't know, thousands and thousands of dollars worth of chips.
Oh,
So
yeah, for sure.
I'm totally okay with spending that. And like a 3/8, I don't think is nearly that expensive, which is what we'll be using in the yeah. So 3/8 with an inch length of cut, which is the one we're using right now, is $55.
Can you get a dual contact shrink fit holder?
Yeah, that's what we got. All the holders we
Okay.
just got are dual contact
Okay.
because we figure we have it, we might as well start using it.
I mean, you would think, I know you had mentioned you got that 3/8 because that's kind of more suited for a 30 taper machine, but you would think if you had a dual contact shrink fit with a 1/2 inch, and you've got that kick-ass little spindle of yours. I feel like it could handle that.
Oh, I'm sure it could. Yeah, I mean, we were running
Yeah.
the half inch in the kitty, which is in dual contact and has less power. So I'm sure we could really. The, the reason I didn't go with a half inch with that spindle is with dual contact and a shrink fit. To really push it, we would be getting into really dangerous territory. If
Okay.
that makes sense, like it would be to the point where everything would have to be absolutely perfect.
Oh, I
And
see.
otherwise, like we could rip a part out of the jaws really easily, or like people have had pull out and shrink fit holders. Like it's
Yeah.
few and far between, but at that point, like you are putting some serious stress into every single part of that system, and like think for return on investment and process reliability, the 3/8 is going to do us a lot better.
And it's not
We'll
going to
see.
be much slower.
No, definitely not. So I think it'll be fine. If we're hurting for more material removal, we'll step up to a half inch, but I think we'll be totally fine with the 3/8.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm curious to see how you like that. And then are you just going to use like a torch?
Yeah, probably either that or
Okay.
I'll see if somebody will torch one for me or something like that, or heat one for me.
And then do you have to worry about shank tolerance on the Destiny tool?
No, I think it's the same tolerance that Helical does, H6
Okay.
or whatever it is.
Yeah, I just know after I don't know if you saw the latest Haas tip of the day video, but they talked all about that stuff.
Yeah, I believe that it's comparable to the same tolerance that Helical has. That was one reason that we switched to carbide, or not carbide carts where we buy them, but Destiny in the first place. Because like the first
Okay.
shop I worked in was a big GAR shop, and like that was all I really had used, and like I played around with some of their three flutes at the tail end of me working there, and like I liked GAR, but one thing that I didn't like about them, and one thing that I don't like about some other end mill manufacturers is the tolerance on their diameter, where it's either plus or minus 2 thou or it's plus 0 minus 2 thou, and like Helical and
Interesting.
Harvey is like plus nothing minus 2/10 or plus or
Yeah, they
minus two
hold
tenths
their
or
stuff
something.
really tight.
Yeah, so it's right off the bat you're increasing your chances of hitting your tolerances.
Yeah, that's interesting. No,
Yeah,
I'm really looking forward to hopefully this year I'm going to try to lay out more how I can standardize tooling cuz I found it's just so nice when you can like get a whole part done and like not have to touch any tools off like it's just in the machine ready to go.
yeah. Oh, totally. I mean, that's why we have our more or less standard tools up to tool 8 in our machines.
Yeah.
Like if we go to a stainless or anything like that, we obviously have to change out our end mills. But for all the aluminum stuff we do, it's fairly standard. And like the parts I set up today, I had to load a tap and drill, and that was it. All the other end mills I already had in the machine.
Yeah, that's what I want to be at. I'm close, but I don't know. It'd be cool to for some of those dedicated tools like the half inch tool or any. I don't really use quarter inch, which is weird. I use more 3/16 just because it's a little more universal.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Quarter inch is like, well, I don't know. I go back and forth. Like I'll have months where I'll use like quarter inch as my smaller size rougher pretty exclusively, and then there's times where I just use like 3/16 a whole bunch. I don't know. I've definitely gone back and forth.
yeah, it's just interesting. It'll be fun. I got that. I think it was the 2.5 inch face mill from Mari Tool a while ago, and the job for that local company, those big clamshell parts, they're finally sending a check for 50% down. So I'm finally going to be able to use that tool, and then I'll probably finally get back to using that chip fan on these parts.
Oh, nice. That'll be great. Yeah, you create a
So
ton of chips with those parts.
yeah, like I think it's like a 6 pound blank that turns into like a 2 pound part,
Jeez.
and there's like over 100 parts. It's like 400 or 500 pounds of chips, and it's
That's
just
awesome.
like, yeah. I mean, I'm just like filling up garbage bags full of chips, like 2 or 3 a day.
Well, and you got a pretty dialed process now for those. Like I know we worked pretty hard on the chamfers on that last time.
Yeah, and they're wanting to add some engraving to it, which is no big deal because I'll just do that with like a three or not 3/16, but a 1/16 ball that I keep standard or something like that.
Hmm.
Um, but I don't know. It's cool because they're getting to the point where they're growing so much. So I'm hoping this order of 100 parts, and I'm hoping the next order will be like 200, and I can really set something up and just really just let it run. So it's kind of cool to see them grow, and I can kind of adjust accordingly.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really cool.
So, and then let's see. Let's go back to questions or things here. One cool thing that happened, I got 10,000 followers on Instagram, so that's pretty cool.
Oh yeah, I saw you pushing for that. Congrats, man.
Yeah, that's pretty. I think I've been on Instagram since 2015, maybe. So like 5 years.
Oh,
So not too
awesome.
bad.
Okay, yeah, that's great.
So it's kind of cool to just see the 10K. Looks really clean.
Yeah, well, and I've been seeing you posting your stories a whole bunch trying to get there, and it seems like a lot of your followers really helped you. That's nice to have that kind of community around your brand.
Yeah, and I was talking to someone else, and he brought up a good point. He's like, he has a machining page, and he was like, he's been doing this for just as long as I have, and he maybe has half the followers I do, maybe like 5,000. And he brought up a good point. He's like, it's a lot easier to grow a page like you do when you have products versus like a service company.
Oh, totally. Yeah, because
And I
like
was like, that is a
machinists,
really good point.
yeah, machining pages are tough to grow. Just look at anybody that is out there. Like, there's just not that many machinists. Like, there's a great community of machinists on Instagram, but as far as like the tens of millions of people that are on Instagram, we are 1% of 1%, or
Oh yeah,
1% of 0.1%. So,
yeah,
but that's awesome. Congrats. That's really
yeah.
cool.
It's pretty cool. And then another thing, so just to keep things moving forward, kind of I want to try to do more cross branding or whatever. So basically Hex Gadgets is no longer. Now it's going to be, so there's Brick Tactical, which is like all the Lego stuff, and then Brick Tactical Manufacturing will be, I mean, it's same. It's always been the same company. I just had Hex Gadgets as a username for the longest time. I never changed it, um, and so now everything's kind of under the same roof. And so if people just want to see the machining stuff of what I do, they can follow Brick Tactical MFG. Or if they want to also see the Lego stuff, they can go to just Brick Tactical. So it's separated, but it's all kind of under the same roof.
Yeah, yeah. I know. I texted you the day you changed it over. I was like, "Oh, finally did it, huh?" Because we'd been talking about that for a while.
Yeah, it was one of those things like I mentioned to you off air. I'm trying to all these little things that I've been putting off. I'm just trying to get them done these last couple days, couple weeks of this year, and just like let's move on. Let's not, think about it. Let's just keep going forward.
Yeah, yeah. That's a really good way to wrap up the year for sure. In the
Yeah.
the final days.
Oh yeah, seriously.
Well,
And
very
then
cool.
I guess one last thing. I feel like I'm taking the stage here a lot.
No, no. I mean, we've like I don't know. Well, like I've been busy, but nothing that's super shareable. Like we. Oh, I guess we talked about it a bunch of the last couple episodes. But we sent out the PO for that subplate and all the two small Delta vices and all that stuff. So that should be here sometime in January. I think it's like a 3 week build time. And then yeah, we bought all those tool holders so we can finally take advantage of Big Plus or dual contact. I guess it's not. I don't think it's a licensed Big Plus spindle, but yeah. So we've been steadily working on that. Uh, I posted that gift I made for my girlfriend on my
That turned out
Instagram.
awesome.
Thanks. Yeah, I was really happy with how that came out. I kind of was down to the wire as far as machining it. Like I'd been working on the design for a couple weeks now, and just been so busy at the shop I hadn't had time, and ended up doing it the day before her birthday, and like was there all day doing it, and
Oh jeez.
gluing magnets in and all that stuff. But yeah, it worked out really really well. I need to remake the base because the magnets didn't press in as far as I wanted, but besides that, like she really liked it. It was a really fun thing to get to play with, like an assembly more than just parts.
Yep.
So yeah, it was a blast. Getting to work with magnets is always cool. Like they're just fun. Um,
Yep.
so yeah, it was a lot of fun. I appreciate the kind words.
Yeah, I mean those look like some pretty serious magnets too in the video.
Yeah, they were. They weren't like all that special, but because there was like so many of them, like six on each piece, they when they contacted all of them, like it was they were strong. It was really nice. It really
Yeah.
it feels substantial when you click them all together.
Yeah, that's awesome. I like the brass and aluminum. That always looks so nice.
Yeah, yeah. The last thing that I had made her 2 years ago, I made her a necklace hanger that was also brass and aluminum and mesquite wood, and
Okay.
I kind of wanted to keep that theme going. The last one was all bead blasted, which was kind of it made it dull and patina a little faster. But this one, I don't know. I got the nice face mill that's making mirrors, and I just wanted to play with mirrors. So
Speaking of assemblies, total side tangent. I'm so close to finishing up that production mold that I've been building and designing. Um,
oh
I
sweet.
can't wait to finish that. I've got like one more part to make, and then I got to make. Actually, no, take that back. I got more work to do. Got one big part to make, and then I've got to make the two inserts, which I'm doing last because those are going to be the most tight tolerance parts. And then I've got to cut down 5 ejector pins and then make 2 ejector plates, and that's it. So what is that? Two, four, 5 parts. Um, Actually six because there's one random part I gotta make, but I don't know. I'm like so close to it, and it's just like I really hope it's working. I've talked to shout out to Adam the machinist. He's been helping me out a lot. I've just had like little questions like, for example, okay, I have an ejector pin that's a 1/4 inch, but if you actually measure it, it's actually I think 2507.
hmm
So my question to him was, okay, what do I make the hole size to? Because obviously this needs to move smoothly between the mold insert and the ejector pin, but there can't be too much clearance, otherwise plastic's gonna get around it. Um, so he was like, just ream it to 251. 3 or 4 tenths should be plenty. And I'm like, okay. Um, I mean, I would assume to ream it to maybe like a tenth over, or I don't know. I had no experience in that, so him having a little bit of mold making experience, he's more like he's talked before, more of the tool and die, but he's done a couple injection molds where he knows enough, and it's just nice to have someone that's done it and kind of pick his brain.
Yeah, totally. He's a great resource, and man, he made some really cool Christmas gifts. Speaking of Adam,
Yeah, talk about those the scissors. That was insane.
yeah, and that Nutcracker with the flexure, like that is just like anytime you can make like a living hinge style thing in metal is just so cool. I was really impressed.
Yeah, keyword metal. I thought you weren't going to say that.
No, yeah, it's amazing. Like it was really impressive, and like it seemed like it worked really well too. So,
Yeah, that was pretty freaking awesome.
but yeah, otherwise, yeah, we've just been steadily busy, just kind of enjoying the machine. I just like I said, I got all that documentation and help on the high speed codes that I've got to set up because there's a quick set menu in the C0 control that makes the high speed codes function a lot more like the Haas high speed codes. Because like currently I've got different codes for the A modes that are all different. Like rough is different than finish. It's like M282 versus 285. But if I enable the quick set menu, it's much more like the Haas one where you give it like the high speed code plus L and a number. I think I've got 7 levels on the C0 control. And so
Okay.
that'll be different than what I have right now, but a lot more useful, I think. Yeah, so like all of my high speed codes will go to M289 and then L0, which is off, through L9. And really, it's actually only like 6 levels because it's L1 is standard, L6 is finish S, which I think is like higher end finishing, and then there's like adjustment modes as well, which is 7 through 9.
Okay.
Yeah, S modes are higher levels of smoothing for 3D surfacing. So there's like quite a bit more left in the can on this machine. Like the example in this documentation is 500 inch per minute cutting on a adaptive with 600 inch per minute non-engagement feed rate and like a 5/10 tolerance and 15 thou stock to leave and no gouging of the corner
Wow.
anywhere. So pretty awesome. I'm really really excited to start playing more and more.
Yeah, I mean, certain machines you get up to those numbers and you're worried about hurting the machine, but then it's like in your case it's like, okay, this is what this machine was literally designed for.
Yeah, yeah. It's gonna be a lot of fun. Like
Yeah.
I've felt like I've been pushing it harder and harder, and seeing stuff like this, I'm like, I'm nowhere near even close to the limits. So
Yeah.
it definitely would have helped having these high speed modes turned on for like the star and all of that, because like the standard A mode codes for finishing really slow down the machine significantly. So
Like noticeably.
yeah, well, like on one of my position pages, you can actually see the live feed rate of what the machine is actually doing, and like it'll go on like my rough surfacing of the star. I was doing like 100 inches a minute, and like when it went off the edge of the star and was doing like little curly cues to get back on, it would slow down to like 20 inches a minute or like 15 inches a minute.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and like granted, these codes are not very well set up from the factory, and I don't know who set up our A modes. It might have been like whatever Yamazin Tech was using it for IMTS, or it might be from the factory. Like they're very poorly documented, and there's a few guys on Instagram and a few techs from Yamazin that are doing a lot of work to get it running. I don't want to name any names because I don't want to just like dump more people on these
Yeah.
people. Like they've been nice enough to help me, and the last thing I want to do is just inundate them with more people. So uh, once I kind of play around with it more, I'll definitely do some posts on Instagram or do a video or something like that on what I learned and kind of help out who I can.
Yeah, sounds good.
So you had put here paperless. I think we should talk a little bit about that and then wrap up for the night. But what about
Yeah,
paperless?
so basically for my UV printing, I do custom jobs for different customers and whatnot. And whenever I do UV printing, whenever I do anything for accounting purposes, I try to separate it out just so I can see, like, okay, this is how much I've made doing this process or using this machine or whatever. And I've had this big binder of just like, I would make an invoice and I'd print one out. And then I'd also have like a setup sheet that I'd print out and put like all the different things like, okay, when did they pay, tracking number, when did I ship it, just like all these different references just in case I needed to reference the order again.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know why it just hit me today, but I'm like, okay, end of the year, let's tally this up. And I didn't move it all from the books to Google Sheets, but I'm basically starting now Google Sheets. So everything's going to just be no more paper. I don't have to print things out. I don't have to put them in the little plastic cover sleeves. And I mean, the whole idea is just like, why should I be printing all that out and taking all that time when I could just be copying and pasting straight from like my shipping software and my email straight into another window. um, so I'm just trying to be smarter about little things like that.
That's a great idea. That's a really good goal for the 2020 also.
Yeah, I'm just trying to like, why should I print invoices? Like, I just don't understand why. Like, if you just have a good file system, you should just have them.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've told you, I think we talked about it 2 or 3 episodes ago, that I mean, all of our bookkeeping is online. And
Yeah.
like, I don't think we've ever had paper books really. We started out with a free, it's called Wave apps. And that was a free bookkeeping software. And now we pay for zero, but yeah, I don't think I could ever go to paper or anything. Like we use paper if I've got a lot of jobs in the shop that I want to keep track of. I'll print out like travelers, and I've got those traveler sleeves, and so I'll print
Yep.
out like the print and some kind of traveler documentation to say like how many I need to make and when they're due. But um, lately, we've just had such quick turnaround jobs and like only one or two of them at a time that it's not really hard to keep track of them.
Yeah. That's my one thing though with like prints. Like I don't know what it is, but I need a hard copy of a print, like to circle, to highlight. Um, I don't think I could do that, even if you had like an iPad and like a PDF editor. Like I don't know if I could get a hold of that.
Yeah, I don't know. I see it both ways for sure. Like
Yeah,
I like having a paper print that I can keep in front of me sometimes, but I wouldn't mind like a tablet that I could do that with too.
yeah,
I don't know. I just need to find like the right solution. Like I know there's a lot of tough books and stuff like that out there, but so far I haven't seen anything I really like. Like I've got a Note 10 with like the S Pen, and
okay.
like that thing draws really easily on the screen. Like if I could find something that draws like the S Pen does on the screen for prints, I would totally use that because it draws more
Honestly,
like a
the new
Wacom
iPads
tablet.
or Surfaces, maybe.
Oh yeah, I guess those have like the either Windows Pen or Apple Pen or whatever. That
Yeah,
might work. My only worry with those is like waterproofness,
yeah, coolant.
IP rating and things like that. So
Huh.
I'll have
I
to
don't
look
know.
into that. But that would I could, if I had something that drew like that or like a Wacom tablet or something, I could definitely get rid of paper prints because I just like being able to annotate prints. But yeah, we'll see. I'm sure something will come out.
I don't know. That might be a good 2020 goal because I don't know, $1,000 max for a tablet in a nice case. I mean, I think that'd be worth it.
Yeah, it'd be nice. We'll see. I've got to get a new shop computer too. My editing that both the gift I made and a few other files I've been working on recently, like the difference in speed between my work laptop that I have at home and my desktop at work that we use for Fusion is night and day. Like it is so slow for
Yeah,
certain things that I either need to add a I either need to upgrade the hardware there or just buy a new computer. So we'll see what we end up doing.
yeah. Good goals. Let's hope for the best in 2020.
Oh, we'll make the best in 2020.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, I'm very confident that we will both do really well in 2020, and we're gonna keep this going too.
Yeah,
So next week we have got Jake Yates from Yates Precision. I think a lot of our listeners have probably seen him on Instagram. He makes those fantastic safety razors. I actually just got one for Christmas and only slightly cut myself on my first time shaving with it. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how he built his business, how he kind of stumbled into the whole category of safety razors. And we'll definitely put up a post this week asking for all your guys' questions because I'm sure you guys have a bunch also, kind of seeing how he started his business and everything that he does.
yeah. It'll be really interesting. I already got some questions ready for him.
Awesome. Well, again, follow us on Instagram at Within Tolerance. We're trying to push towards that 1,000 so we can get some t-shirts and stickers made. Follow Payton at BrickTactical Manufacturing now, and follow me at Proteum Machining.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you for 6 months, and we will see you in 2020.
Yep. Have a great new year.